I'll be calling the meeting to order. I don't know who wants to start. Do you want to start?
Well, we're going to have the Community Recreation Center project update by Mr. Dave Tomko. So if you want to take it away, Dave, go ahead.
I'll do the best I can. Okay, I want to go over the last executive update that we issued, which is actually also in the board packet for tonight. So it's dated 3/18/2024. You have this. So this is kind of the format, and I know that it's been asked that we, if anyone want to go to the next slide. Here's our current schedule. Now this is primarily the building, but it does have the overall detailed schedule that we has. Also includes the courts, and then it's been asked that we actually add the bathrooms to this. So the next update that we will issue for the May meeting will have that information in it. We'll have the courts in there as well. But I do know in the detailed schedule they show the court work starting in like June-ish, summertime. So that's where it's at right now. But we'll lay that in there so that the three primary pieces to the project, which will be the building itself, the courts area, and the bathrooms, will be on the schedule in the future. Okay, so that's a plan there. Okay.
Thank you so much, Dave.
Yeah.
I've been sort of the curious one. How about the bathroom cottage? I know that's going to be, you were going to put that on CoStars. Has that been put out to bid yet to CoStars?
So, Colin, what I do is want to go through this real quick because this is this is what we have, and then I'll talk about, and then we could talk about how we're going to like to proceed with the bathrooms.
Okay. All right.
And that's and I have that that's in my plan to talk about as well.
Okay, great.
Okay. So, at the next slide. Okay. Basically, the schedule. Here's the top left here is the milestones that we're looking at, the original date and the current date. So we really haven't moved anything regarding the schedule. Now, if you notice right now, it's slow going, but it doesn't mean that no work's being done. We've been having biweekly status meetings with basically the owners. With us, ourselves, the township, our owner's representative, and all the contractors to go over a myriad of things, including site work and all the approvals, all of the items that basically need to get approved to go to manufacturing, and the biggest being the building itself. So the structural steel for the building, from my understanding, has been approved, and that should start fabrication soon. So I think one of the things that Skepton, who's the general contractor, wants to do is, get on site and stay on site. So right now, they've had some time built into the schedule for weather. So right now, as of March, we're not showing any delays in the schedule. Going down to the next piece, the hard cost of budget. That's the contract values right now as they stand, with that first change order being approved by the board in March for the $4,011.15.34. That was done, so that's changed to the contract right now. We have another change order that's going to be in front of the board tonight. For about $6,000 for some wire mesh. So we're going to have that change order coming through, and then we'll reflect that in this. So we'll continue to track kind of high level, real quick, easy, schedule changes up the top, hard cost changes and change orders down the bottom. And then obviously you can see what Anthony Faz put together, starting out of the hot list, as he calls it, and things that we're doing. One is the electrical upgrades, which we're working on, which we're anticipating to be a $0 cost change, but we're waiting on that. That's something that PICO looked at, and then just upgrade our electrical across the board as part of the project. We're doing that, so that tentative right now is $0. We have some grading issues we're working with. If you have been here, previous couple weeks, they pecked through for about a week and a half straight of rock. It's like, now we know what the folks at Pebble Ridge Woodridge were experiencing as they had that sewer project go through. They were pecking away at rock. So we're trying to determine the best course of action here is, do we have a situation where we raise potentially the building up a foot or two to stay out of, a foot or two of rock, or do we basically, how we do that? And the plan of action right now is that we're looking at is to do a little bit of geotechnical work. We're looking at trying to get a geotechnical engineer in here on a time and material basis. We're trying to get that cost right now to come in and dig some more test pits in the area where the building is, determine how deep the rock really is and what kind of rock it is. We did have a geotechnical report prepared. It did show rock, but not, every 5 feet. We showed in isolated incidents areas where we had that, and it did show some, but we kind of want to know where it is and how it impacts going forward. So it's a little bit of, again, while we're kind of waiting, it's not stalled and by any means. And I don't want anybody, if anybody's got any questions on kind of like, why aren't we seeing more progress, please feel free to ask. We're also looking through some utility work. Right now, utilities that come in the loop road of the park and go to the back corner before you start making that curve to the left to go into the park deeper, there's a spaghetti of utilities that come together right there, including our electrical lines, a gas line, drainage, stormwater drainage, and things like that. So there's a little bit of utility coordination, and what we're trying to do is determine exactly where it is, almost like if you're doing something out in the street, how deep is it and where it's at. So that's another piece right there. So the sport courts, that's moving forward there with approvals and things. We're just trying to clarify again where things are going to be finalized and nailed down, not in location, but where we put in the actual gate to the courts versus what the plans show and things like that. The exterior lighting we were looking at, which we've done, what's going to be on during non-business hours, I guess, just as for security lighting, we've gone through that. The AVT IT quote, more just the AVT is audiovisual piece to the component of the project. That's going to be in front of the board tonight also for approval. So Ed, myself, Karen, Rick have met with Advanced Video Technologies to right-size the scope. At first, we were over. We tabled what we were going to do last month, and then we right-sized it. And I think we're now probably $1,000 over budget, over the planned budget. I think we were at 149,000. We're at 150,000 and change. That's in the packet tonight for action for the board to review and approve. There was a note on the plans that basically we're going to have DTMA do the water tap. Looks like that's not something that's kind of a little bit lost in translation. They're not going to do that. We're going to have a contractor come in and do that for them. So there will be somewhat of a cost for that, but would be a project cost nonetheless. Just going to not be the contractor, Skepton, or any of the other 4 primes. It'll be a contract that DTMA will obtain for us, get a quote, and we'll bring that in front of the board for approval. And then the accomplishments, the exterior finishes, were nailed down. That was based on the color palette that came from the architect and the renderings, which we've all seen all over social media and such. So that's really not changing. It's just a matter of the colors that they picked. Going through electrical costs and value engineering, we've done that. Basically our environmental approvals from the Bucks County Conservation District, we've done that. We're our DCNR grant, while that's completed, we're in the process of managing that. So on the cost end, you'll see there are costs that have been incurred from Gilmore. So we manage the DCNR grant and the RACP grant, and that's just normal on any type of project where you have grant funding tied to it. So that's just some of the stuff, and we'll continue to update this as we go along. So any questions? Generally, this format, is everybody, happy with this format and the level of detail we're providing? We're trying to provide that executive level detail, not down to, what does the daily schedule look like?
I think it's terrific. Thanks, Dave.
Okay, great.
I think it's awesome, too. I just had one question.
Yeah.
You're going to add the court, and you're going to add your courts and the bathroom, the next one. Can you enlighten me, with this project, it was discussed, I guess, last year, that we'd have to sort of expand our.
Can't hear you.
Sorry, can you hear me now? Sorry, I'm just pulling the wire, okay. we talked about expanding the parking lot up off of New Britain Road. Is that a direct result of the study that we need more parking spots, that New Britain Road parking lot expansion?
Well, we never really did a study. I mean, as far as parking needs. We always knew we were underparked in the park.
When we did the
itself.
CRC, didn't we have to have a certain number of spots?
Yes, and the parking, I can't speak to that because that's more of a zoning thing, but I mean, we did show in the land development, which, you know, we waived our land development process, obviously, but we did show that I think the parking for in front of the building and on the court side is sufficient for the building. Okay. But not necessarily for the park.
Okay.
Okay, in and of itself. So again, remember that we had courts,
Right.
court parking, and, you know, the one-way loop parking that's adjacent to Field 1. And now that parking is being taken up by the court users and the building.
Right.
Now people who potentially would park there for a concert, that's not there anymore.
So it's going to sort of domino to this larger court. Can you also, I don't know, what is that going to cost us? What's that new parking area running? If maybe you could just include it, you have to, you know.
It's in-
I'm just
so-
curious how that's going to come together.
That was a CapEx in the budget. Okay, that was in there. And
in the
right
budget.
in 20, we put it into the
Right,
24
I
budget.
know, I
Yeah.
just wanted an
Yeah.
update. I didn't know, I just hadn't seen anything in a while, that's why I was asking.
Yeah, you'll see it.
Okay, I just didn't
coming
know
up.
if there was anything additional as part of this update project.
Nothing new on that, and that really, we're not showing that in here as part of any update on the parking lot expansion, okay? Because that is not tied to, from my understanding, none of that money is tied to the Park and Rec building and the bond, okay?
You
Okay.
answered my question, it's
Okay.
not tied to the bond, that's what I was
But
wondering.
in and of itself, right now, what we have budgeted for is $35,000 for engineering this year.
Right, I saw that.
Okay? That's already been approved by the board. Pannoni is moving forward with the engineering and permitting. Okay, I think that came in either a little bit below or above, I'm not sure, maybe 36 or 34, don't
little
quote me
bit
on that.
lower, yeah.
Yeah, I think it was a little bit lower,
I
just
think it
right
was
there.
lower.
Yeah, but that was also based on their estimate of what it would cost, so that is design and permitting. Where that stands is that's moving forward, but our plan is to build it this year using Public Works, to basically have it designed and permitted, have Public Works come in and dig it all out, and put our millings down and base it in as a stone parking lot, just like we have over at Turk 3. Okay, so we have a stone parking lot for 24, and we can, the hope is that we're going to be using it this year. That's why we want to move forward. And then, right now on the plan, it's to be paved in 25.
Right.
And there's money in 25 to pave it. Now, it can be deferred. We don't have to, and that is to put that out as a, full bid contract, or piggyback that on with our road program, let's say, we're going to pave a parking lot and pave these roads.
How
So-
many spots are we adding, just out of curiosity?
We're almost doubling it. I don't, off the top of my head, I don't know, because we did have some conceptual designs that were done through the when the building was proposed to be up
Right.
there. And then we kind of, and Pannoni did some stuff. I think we're kind of doubling it, so at least 100 plus.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's a significant amount.
Yeah, okay, thank
Yeah.
you. I don't want to take up the budget meeting.
No, I think you could find more information on our past meetings that we've had. That's been given to us in the past.
No, I know, I
so.
just was curious
Yeah.
if there was an update to it. Thank you, Jen.
Okay.
Next.
Next sheet there. Yeah, can you bring that? Doing a little dance there. All right, there we go. Yeah. No, there's one before that, to change.
One before that?
The one
Okay.
before that, yeah.
Oh,
Oh, my goodness, what are you doing?
thing is going crazy.
It is the change order tracker sheet. So while we have on the previous sheet, you've kind of just have the costs and the hard cost budget. On the previous sheet, this sheet basically then breaks down and tracks all the change orders in detail. So you see the general contractor, what'd you do? Okay, go back, you jumped to the previous sheet there. So there's the hard costs on that. And then the next sheet is the change order tracker, shows all the contractors, which we have 3 contractors technically. One is doing 2 things, which is, but right now we only have 1 approved, 1's pending, and then we're looking at the electrical one being the change, a $0 change. But we're going to be documenting that for the fact that it is a scope change, so you will see that change order come through as a $0 to be documented to say, they're doing A, we're doing B. I think actually it's the the line voltage that's coming in, okay? So this is how we're tracking change orders and just based on more detailed description on that. All right, next one, Ed. And this being basically our owner vendor budgets, some of our soft costs. And so you see, this came directly out of what we presented, the final kind of budget that we presented to the board at the budget work session in the fall of '23. Okay, so we're starting to get actual numbers and things here. So as you can see, we're still tracking all the items on the left, what amount of money that was budgeted, the current value as in an actual contract or estimate that we received, then the change, and then when it was approved by the board. So for example, the interior gym equipment, which actually was the exterior, interior gym equipment all kind of combined into one number, which we then split out because I think potentially we're gonna have two different vendors. Originally, we were talking about one vendor doing both. We got another quote as a suggestion from Skepton. They worked with another company to potentially do stuff, and we said, hey, we think we get a better number if we split this up. So we split the number, so you can see we're better on the interior gym equipment by $8,000. We're over by $420 on the flooring item. So this is how we'll track and when the board approves all the vendor contracts that come through that we are actually coordinating with directly. Okay. So that's
Good work, Dave, thank you.
Okay.
Every dollar you save on that end helps us on the other end.
Yep, so that's it. So coming up, we're gonna see is, the AVT, like I said, 149, which are showing as pending. That'll come in at like 150 something and change, so that'll be a little bit over. But, as they work out, right now, we're under by $7,000 at the bottom there. And this is how we'll track costs so that you can see what they are. Eventually, we'll be done with all this, so you'll just see eventually just some progress information and, schedule updates, any issues with, as we move forward here, and, photos. So then again, here's some progress photos you can
Before we
see.
get to the photos, Dave, just to make sure I understand. So if we combine that with the change order request, that puts us at 11K over our original estimate so far?
Yes, and
Okay.
we should do.
I just want to
right.
make sure that I was reading that as
Yeah.
two separate
No, so
things
we
that you
don't
mentioned.
have, correct, we've got, so right now, we're at over at 4, plus we'll have another 6 today. We're at 10 on the contractor side. So what I think we need to do is we need to kind of do a summary slide of the side by side, the overall, which we haven't done.
That's a total on 9.7 million.
Yes.
Right.
So that's what we need to do. So we'll work to get that. So we see, we don't want to we're not separating the two on purpose. It's just that's the way they are. But yes, you're right. So we're at 11 on the contractor side, but we're 7 under on the vendor side right now. So that's the overall.
Tell them about this, or?
Yeah, it's just generally so as we go through, you'll probably see that the pictures will lag because obviously when the reports are done, but just in these photos you can see how far you're down in this that top of that inlet on the top right there. That's finished grade right now as it's designed, so you can see we're a good 4 feet below existing grade, and you can see all the rock that they had to hammer through there.
If we have to raise the building up, are we going to have to redo these grades that have already been finished?
These boxes will have to be adjusted if that affects the parking lot. I don't know that the moving the building up to keep the building out of rock, how that adjusts, or if we're going to move the entire site or just the building.
Gotcha.
So
this is
we're-
specifically the parking lot?
Yes.
This is right now.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha.
Okay. So that's the kind of the monthly report. So that's our plan moving forward to continue to update everybody. And again, if there's any questions on that.
No, that was really well done, and I appreciate all the work you've been doing for the past few weeks to try and pull this together, and it's great.
Excellent,
I
thank you.
appreciate it.
Thank you, Dave.
Thank you.
Ditto, ditto, ditto.
All right, so move on. Is that you, Ed? No? Ken.
Ken. I'm going to go, we presented to the board tonight a summary of the detail that we had sent out in your board packet last Friday. So if you have the budget workshop summary in front of you, that's what I'd like to start with. Yes. The budget workshop summary. So like I said, this is the summary of the details that we had sent out on Friday. And if I take you to the second page, the 2023 summary results, working left to right, operations, we budgeted $13.7 million in revenue, and we came in at $14.7 million as far as that was concerned. So we came in higher as far as our operations revenues are concerned. And I'll get into the details on the next page. Our expenses were budgeted at $13.8 million, and as you see, they came in at $13.7. We had a positive variance there of $100,000. So overall, with the revenues and expenditures, we had a $1.1 million positive variance as far as our operations, revenues, and expenses are concerned.
Versus budget.
Correct, versus budget. Going below the capital, we budgeted $7.6 million for capital, and the revenues came in at 4.4. The big marker on that is the Safe Routes to School project that was slated to start in 2023. Due to technical difficulties, it was moved to 2024. So the result of the domino effect being that we didn't receive any grant money in 2023 for the project, and we didn't spend anything as far as the monies were concerned, as far as the project is concerned. So, you have that, that domino effect running through the capital, revenues and expenditures as far as to budget. So
long-term, we are still expecting to get that grant. It's really not going to impact us. It's just for this time frame.
Yes.
Project's underway now, so
It's happening.
it will flow through.
Yeah, that's what I thought, but
Shady retreat, correct.
again, I see red. I'd like to know why red
Yes,
is there.
the project is ongoing as we speak. Is that correct? Yes, that's correct. So if we could go to the second page. Operations conclusions. As I indicated here in the bullet number 1, the $1 million positive variance was anticipated in our fall forecast. When we were going through the budget process in 2023 for the 2024 budget. As it says, those resulting proceeds were used to form the 2024 five-year plan. Now, in 2023, we had a good year, like I had indicated in the previous slide. Our EIT was up. We received receipts of $5.4 million. We budgeted $5.1 million as far as our EIT. So we had a strong year as far as our earned income tax. We had a strong year for our transfer taxes. The big marker for that was the sale of the Pine Run community, and we realized a nice transfer tax windfall as far as that was concerned. Our building permits were stable in 2023. What we call our core building permits are pools and garages, porches, and those type of things still remained stable for 2023. The only thing that was missing in 2023 were the big projects that we didn't realize in 2023. But for 2024, building permits has gotten off to a fast start as far as we've received close to a $200,000 building permit as far as a project was concerned. I don't remember the project off the top of my head. Stephanie, could you help me with that?
Bucks County Mental Health
Thank you. Yes. So,
and the county complex.
and the county complex, yes.
Well, no, that's where it's located.
Okay. Anyway, the 2024 building permits started off fast, and we've been meeting with the township manager and the code enforcement officer. We met with them last month. We have a scheduled meeting for, I believe, May. We are going to continue to meet with them just to make sure that we have all the projects that are going to be developing in 2024 as far as revenues are concerned, to make sure that we notify the Board of Supervisors of these projects that are going to be upcoming and the Finance Committee. One thing that we did have that was very strong in 2023 was our interest income. The interest rates were over 5%. Some of them were even at 5.5%. I invested township money in CDs, and we realized quite a surplus as far as that was concerned. If I just may take a minute of your time.
300,000 for the year.
Yes, there you go. Yes.
Great job, Ken, great job, thank you.
Yes, we came in at $421,000 in interest income for 2023. So that was a nice windfall for us. We experienced some savings in salaries for delayed hiring. Another thing is, all the Board of Supervisors know, is that we changed our medical plan as of 5/1/23, and there was a nice savings there as far as the medical plan was concerned. So as you see, with the savings and the salaries being delayed and the medical fringe benefits, it's totaled about $140,000. So as you see, the actual results were $1.1 million in positive variance, and it was $65,000 better as far as our forecast was concerned in the fall. So as I say here, that there's no significant positive variance available to alter any of the future plans, because as I said back in the fall when we were doing the 2024 budget and going through the budget process, we did realize these positive variances, and that we included them in our 5-year plan. Do I have any questions? No questions? Okay.
Of course I do.
Okay, go ahead.
My only one would be, and I've asked Stephanie, it seems like there's a wonderful abundance of projects that are happening in the township, just using Barton Cinema and everything else. Well, I'm hoping that maybe when you put that project together, we can sort of see what's happening.
It's all on the list.
Yeah, I figured, but yeah, that,
It's on the list.
I'm fingers crossed, there's a lot.
Yeah.
Yes.
And, I mean, we receive fees, so part of that process, Nancy, is when we
Yes.
get the land development
Yes, permits.
applications in. Some have come in, some haven't come in yet.
Exactly.
And so we do receive an application fee, which is minimal. It's thousands of dollars depending on the project and the size. Once they get through the land development process, and kind of for everybody who's watching on television or listening in, it's important to realize that sometimes it takes time, even from the time the Board of Supervisors approves a plan, for it to actually come to breaking ground and seeing that building permit, because there are the development escrow agreements, there's all the kind of dotting of the last I's and T's on the plans. Also, any and all agencies having jurisdiction over the project, permits have to be received before we can issue that. So sometimes even though a plan has received approval, there's still a lot of stuff going on in the background with the engineer, our office, maybe the DEP, Bucks County Water and Sewer Authority if they have public water, or the health department. So that takes time to get until we see like a building permit, and sometimes
Stephanie, if you
that
don't
could be
mind.
like 6 months or so.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So just to help out a little bit, when we've gone through the budget process over the years, Ed has done, and Ken have done a great job at estimating the permits. I think, if I remember correctly, we have like our bread and butter permits that we have that's pretty stable over the years. And we've been very good at predicting the revenue for permits, so that when we get to the point in the budget budget sessions where we start reflecting on or looking at our current year, you should be able to see that. It might not spell it out, but in the past, we've been pretty spot on with how our permit revenue has come in. So it may not be necessary, and I think what Stephanie was alluding to is that it is one of those targets that's very hard to pin down because of all of the intricacies of the process.
Done by
So,
a percentage of the
I
total cost.
understand, there's lots of
so,
variables.
so
I was just-
having a listing of who's getting them and everything.
Well,
I mean,
I'm
we
thinking
see
just more
them.
big picture, what potential.
Yeah.
That's when I'm not looking to create more work, I just.
We're going to talk about forecasting in
Yeah,
just
and
a
you're
minute,
great.
so why don't you
Yeah.
hang fire till then?
Yep,
One question, building permits are part of it, but as they tear down and prepare to do more construction, is that anticipated to cause any hiccups or changes in revenue stream from real estate taxes? In other words, will the assessments increase on those long-term? So is that something, that may be considered?
Good point. That remains to be seen. Our real estate taxes for 2023 were stable. We had a normal delinquency of about $40,000 that was turned over to the county. So, like I always tell everybody, we're cognizant of all the moving parts as far as the finances here at the township, whether it be real estate taxes, transfer taxes, or earned income taxes. So it's something that we're always watching.
But we do assume in the long-range forecast that the assessments go up something like 0.25% a year. And we get the latest figures from the county, and then, but the figure we used as the base for millage is different.
And I
as
was
we go
just
out in the
focusing on
future.
long-term versus the 1 year
Right.
in 2024.
Yep.
True, but we will receive demolition permits too. So I don't know if they'll offset each other, but we can only hope.
Ken, I did have a question. You said obviously we picked up a lot of interest that we didn't expect, but then we've taken that, you've factored that into the budget. What did you use for rate of return for '24?
Well, right now, rate of return, about between 4 and 4.5% as far as the rate of return for 2024. I've been hearing things like that the Fed is going to reduce their rates. Once upon a time, it was going to be maybe 3 or 4 reductions. Now I've heard it's maybe down to 1 or 2. So, anything, I was always doing 6 months to 9 months. Now I'm going out a year just to catch the wave. I just pick up a CD that's 1 year, and it's a little over 5%. So, I'm expecting that there's going to be, like you said, 1 or 2 rate reductions this year.
But there's still potential then, if we don't get as much, you could actually outperform what you've listed as your rate of return anyway.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. Should we continue? All right, capital conclusions. The next page. As I indicated here, we had a $700,000 net positive variance, and this is predominantly from the accelerated road program that was completed in 2023. It came under budget by about $500,000. That money that stays in the Roads and Bridges Fund is dedicated funds to the maintaining and improvement of the roads. So it is restricted, funds as far as that is concerned. We've also added, for 2023, the trail maintenance program, which will be, remains to be seen what type of program that will be assessed in 2024 as far as that is concerned. Also, the positive variance was predominantly from also programs that were deferred to 2024 and beyond, like I say here in this bullet point. Another point, since the variance is in fund balances, it will be consumed by the planned programs and spending that we've set up for 2024 and in the 5-year program. Another bullet point, as planned, restricted fund reserves of $1.1 million were transferred into the CRC project. Some of the examples were the fees in lieu, money that we got from the Doylestown Walk development, Toll Brothers, yes, thank you, cell tower proceeds, and the capital fundraising that were transferred to the CRC project. Right now, there's no significant variance balance available for other purposes. Everything is dedicated, appropriated, and encumbered as far as the budget year for 2024 and beyond. And here, this bullet point, as previously discussed at last year's budget workshops, the current plan is to fund capital projects starting in 2025 by borrowing, not by internal fund transfers. So it's still necessary as we speak today. And the approximate cost is about $2.8 million over 4 years that we may have to borrow for capital projects. Any questions there? Okay, on to the next slide.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Yes, of course.
I'm just a little slow catching up on everything that's been going on with the budgets, workshops. So the borrowing, is that primarily for the new community center? It's not.
I didn't hear the question.
Go ahead, Amber.
It does not. That's everything else that doesn't include the CRC. Yes, it's like the road program, the police vehicles, any trails that might be pushed out. There's a few parks ones that are sitting in there that we'll talk a little bit further about that in June. We'll take a deeper dive into capital in June to talk further about this, but
It does not. Okay.
it does not
Okay.
include. No.
All right. That's good to know. Thank you.
Okay, the next slide, the 2023 EIT revenue results.
You want me to talk about it, or you want to talk about it?
No, I'll talk about it. If you want to add some color,
Go ahead.
by all means. The 2023 budget, as you see at that top portion there, we budgeted $5.2 million for earned income tax. The fall forecast was $5.4 million. You know, we came in a little bit under that, about $65,000 as far as our fall forecast for the earned income tax. But our earned income tax still came in, you know, over budget, as you see, 5.2 versus 5.4. And, you know, we wanted to take a look at what the year-to-year increase was for the earned income tax. And as you could see, that when we took a look at the 2022 results for earned income tax versus the 2023 results, the increase was 0.6%, which was a little surprising as far as we were concerned, because in the previous years, as you see by the chart on the bottom, the EIT revenue history, we had very strong years in 21 and 22. Coming out of the pandemic, we had, you know, if everybody remembers, we had budgeted the EIT down because we felt that with the pandemic that the earned income tax was going to, you know, take a hit as far as our receipts was concerned. Well, lo and behold, we were surprised that our receipts for 21 were stable. And when the results came in for 22, they increased again. So as you see by that green line, that you know, the earned income tax continues to grow over a period of time. And as you know, as you can see by the brown line, that you know, the growth rate was very, very good. So when we realized that it went up 0.6%, we took a look at this and we decided that if we throw out the 2 years, the 21 and the 22 increase, that the overall history of the growth of the earned income tax was about 2%, which was basically what we were using for our growth rate over our 5-year program. as far as our growth is concerned, our assumption, as you would call it. So our growth assumption for earned income tax was about 2% each year. So this is something that we're going to be taking a look, well, we've taken a look at, but we're going to keep an eye on this as far as the earned income tax for '24 is concerned, because we're wondering if, the earned income tax is plateaued at this $5.4 million marker. So we wanted to visualize this as far as the chart is concerned. As you can see in that chart, earned income tax is very important because it represents almost 37% of our township operating revenue. So we just wanted to bring that to your attention. Is there any questions, or Ed, would you like to add any color?
One piece of color that I would add is that if you think back to this meeting a year ago, we were looking at charts that talked about what we were going to do with the surplus. And what you can see from this chart is the reason we had a surplus was because we were not anticipating a 10% increase in EIT year to year. In fact, we've been using 1.75, 1.8%, 2% for quite a period of time. So this year is a different story. We actually forecasted it pretty closely in the fall and ended up not doing quite as well, but pretty close. We were within 1% or so of where we thought we would be. But yes, we have to keep our eye on the 0.6%, and we need to understand why it happened. One theory could be that the reason it went up was that during the pandemic, people came out here to work who were in the city, they paid their taxes here, and now they've gone back to work in the city, and the city's getting it. It could be.
It's a theory. It's a theory, but as I said to the supervisors, that we're going to be keeping an eye on this.
Right.
And like I said, we keep an eye on everything as far as transfer taxes, real estate taxes, earned income taxes. So because these are big movers as far as our revenues are concerned, as far as our operating revenues are concerned. So if I can take you to the next slide, the EIT revenue forecasting. Now, so let's have Ed explain this chart to you so you can somewhat understand it. Ed?
This is the chart for people who are visually stimulated. It's very colorful, and it has 9 years of EIT revenue data normalized to 100% year after year. And the stacked bar represents what we receive in each quarter of the year, including a fifth quarter, which is between January and the end of February. We get a pretty big chunk of money that then gets posted back into the previous year. So we have to wait pretty much till the end of February till we know what happens. What this chart tells you is that at this stage of the game, at the end of the first quarter, we don't have enough money here to figure out what it's going to be. We're in the 4%, 5% range. We don't really start getting this until the second quarter, which is kind of the gold bar. And then when you get to the green, that's the end of the third quarter, that's September. And there's a fair amount of consistency by the time you get to the end of the third quarter. At the end of the third quarter, the percentage that we receive is somewhere between 58 and 63% of what the actual will end up being, which is an average of 60.1%. The second bullet is the point that Ken made, that if you take the big years out, we're still sitting around 2%. Anyway, our 2023 fall forecast, the one we did last September, assumed that the money that we had at that point in time was only 60% of the total, and that's how we derived the 5.444 million that went into the forecast. As it ended up, it was 60.7, not 60.0. So we're still relatively close on this thing. This chart tells you a fair amount about how we can go about forecasting this with some degree of reliability year to year. And I would say this year, being within 64,000 at the end of the year is not bad. Also a word on building permits. At the same meeting last year in June, we talked about building permits and we showed you a bunch of bar charts, which it is our intention to bring again this June. We're going to have our May meeting. We're going to work on what the opportunities are. That was also another colorful chart, and it does have base business. It has underlying zoning activities, and I don't know if you remember it well, but they were literally hundreds of transactions that made up that base business. And the years that we do well, there's a handful more, 3 or 4 or something like that, that are big dollar items that sit on the top. And the interesting pattern is that seems to occur something like every other year. So there's a bit of a sawtooth effect, and the hospitals involved, the counties involved, all big entities that are doing these things. Anyway, it is our plan to go through that process again and come to the June meeting prepared to show you a little history and where we are at this point in the same fashion. So we'll go through all that at that point.
Are you budgeting for all the color ink you're using right now?
I get to choose different palettes. I don't know how I came to this one, but
So this is a good tool that we use to forecast our as far as our earned income tax for the current year and the following year as far as our budget is concerned. So I don't, if there's any questions?
Not a question, a
Okay,
comment
yes.
maybe. Keystone, the EIT company used by Bucks County, I was wondering if they might be able to shed any light on some of the questions that you were bringing up, or points you were bringing up about how EIT may have fluctuated through the years. Obviously, not expecting an answer, but I was just wondering if maybe Keystone Collections might be able to help out.
I always explore that option as far as contacting Keystone and seeing what their response is. Usually they talk about calendar year and their fifth quarter, and like I said, I'll reach out to them and see if there's anything going on as far as what they see as far as the trend is concerned. But summation, we had a nice solid year as far as 2023, as far as our revenues and our expenditures. I just wanted to let you know that the audit for 2023 is kicking off on April 15th. So they're going to be here camped out for 3 weeks doing the authority and the township audit. So, that's going to be starting. And if there's no other questions, I don't have anything else. And if you have any follow-up questions, you know how to get a hold of us.
Okay, my turn. So in front of you, you have the 2025 budget schedule. Tonight we kick off our review of 23 on April 2nd. We will meet again on June 18th. It'll be our second meeting, and we'll have more component study results and how we're doing with everything. The summertime, July, August, is when the finance department's meeting with the department heads, developing and refining forecasting and budget numbers as we start to build that, how we're doing in 24 and building 25. We'll meet again September 17th. We'll have 3 sessions following October the 17th, the October 1st, and again on October 15th. Working our way through capital, revenues, and expenditures. The goal of having a preliminary budget and adoption for the November 19th Board of Supervisors meeting. And then, of course, the budget hangs for 20 days for public review, and then the final adoption by the Board of Supervisors occurs at the December 17th meeting. And that is our schedule. At this point, is there any discussion for the next budget work session in June that any of the board members or finance committee, wants to note as a particular topic? And if there is something, let us know. I don't, somebody may have something right now, but certainly, please, let us know in the next month or so, so that we have time if there's any research that we need to do.
Yes, it's something for you to think about.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Two
Not
things
the Friday
that
before.
come to mind for me. One, having wrapped up the accelerated roads program, I'll just slide my chair. Having wrapped up the accelerated road program, just kind of a breather to see where, wrap it up. This is everything we've got done. This are the next steps going back to normal road work, and what that vision looks like. And then we've also been talking about the bike trails for some time. I know the Bike and Hike Committee now has a subcommittee dedicated to working with that. So to start to develop those pieces together.
Speaking of that, do we have a sense of, and obviously it varies, but what does it look like when we get the fees in lieu of, because I know a lot of that in the past has gone towards our park and rec. But do we, and I see the budget, but I didn't know, I'm just sort of curious, like what it's been over the last 5 years from a planning perspective. I'm just more curious to see, obviously it varies. I was just sort of curious, and nothing strenuous, I was just curious, And is that something, I'll just ask my fellow board members, is that something in the past we've always put it, and this may just be our policy, I'm looking for clarification, Jen. Is this something we've always put towards Park and Rec? Is this something where these funds come in? Should we be looking at more creative ways to use this money? I don't know. I'm thinking about that meeting we went to last Thursday night. So I was just wondering with the fire fund, I just was wondering, it's something I've just been thinking about. I don't know if we think about those things or not.
Yeah, there are a few things to that question. Actually, Ken, if you wouldn't mind covering the fees in lieu. Thank you.
Well, the fees in lieu that we get from developer usually has been going into either the Park and Recreation fund or the off-site fund. And it depends on where the developer and the township agrees as far as, as far as that is concerned. Like the major one that we got from Toll Brothers for the Doylestown Walk, was $234,000. So we opened up a separate account, and we had that under the auspices of the Park and Rec Fund. It was decided, as far as that was concerned, to use that money towards the park improvement project. The fees in lieu of are at the jurisdiction of the Board of Supervisors and how they want to use it. And, that's been my frame of reference as far as how the fees in lieu of, come about and get used.
Right. I was just curious if anybody else was just sort of questioning. I know it's always been the standard. Is it something we should review or not, or consider? We don't have to talk about it tonight. It was just something that popped in my head thinking about the fire fund, and also, I know some of that may even go towards the trail maintenance that I know we're using we're combining that with the roads, but I know that's going to be a pretty penny, so.
Right.
That's usually something that we deal with during our budget when we're talking about moving funds, right? That's
I just didn't know if there was any policy, yeah.
over the past, several years. I mean, you've been involved in the process too. We see money getting shifted from one fund to another that's permitted. So,
Right, and just for further clarification,
restricted,
in the ordinance, the fee in lieu of for park and recreation is $18.80 a lot. So if they're not providing open space and things, there is an ordinance sometimes that are in subdivision, so it can be reduced if need be, as by the board and everything in that process. But typically, it's $18.80 a lot.
Thank you.
And it's gone in there, yeah.
And wasn't it really unusual, I think you mentioned at a meeting last year, that Toll Brothers paid it up front?
Yes.
So there was such a large amount of money. Typically, there's not even that
Yeah.
much to even have a conversation about.
Typically, if you're following the conditions of land development subdivision, you will see them as condition of approval to be paid at time of building permit. So obviously, you know, that's typically when the developer will come in with, say, that check. So, you know, if you're doing a 10-lot subdivision and they're doing them one at a time, you're going to get that 1880, you know, you might get it once or twice during the year. Toll Brothers, you're absolutely right. Brenda walked in the door like, here's 137 times. You know, they did them all at once, which I prefer they do them all at once, right up front.
That's awesome. Thank you for that
They can't afford
clarification.
that usually.
That's really
So,
helpful.
Yeah.
All right, is there anything else? I
don't
guess
think so.
we're adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Excellent.